Okay, I want you to do something for me. Right now.
Yeah, just wherever you are.
Exactly. Wherever you are, just stop what you're doing and look around.
Just take a second.
Pick an object. Any object at all. Look at the cup on your desk. Or look at the phone in your hand. Look at the chair you are sitting in right now.
Really look at it.
Right. Touch the fabric or the wood if you can. It feels solid, right? It feels real. It's out there. And you are in here.
Well, I'm currently staring at a microphone that feels very solid. And if I dropped it on my toe, I'm fairly certain it would hurt.
I'm sure it would. But I have a feeling you know where I'm going with this. Because I'm about to tell you that your toe and the microphone are the exact same thing.
See, that sounds like...
I might go even further than that, actually. Here is the question that's going to haunt you for the rest of the day. And quite possibly the rest of your life. Did you buy that cup? Did a factory manufacture that chair? Or did you, through a biological process you were completely unaware of, literally project it into existence?
I mean, that sounds like the premise of a Philip K. Dick novel. Or maybe The Matrix, but, biological instead of digital.
It sounds completely nuts. I know it does. But that is exactly where we are going today.
It really is.
We're settling in by the fireplace, metaphorically speaking, turning the lights down low, and getting into a conversation that is equal parts spooky, hilarious, and just genuinely mind-bending.
It is certainly one of the most provocative sessions we've ever covered. I mean, we aren't just looking at philosophy today. We're looking at the alleged mechanics of reality itself. We were looking under the hood of the universe.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we are cracking open the archives for something truly special. We are looking at Session 302 from the early sessions, Book 7 of the Seth Material. And the date of record here is November 21st, 1966.
A Monday night in Elmira, New York.
Yep.
And before we launch into the heavy metaphysics, we do need to handle a bit of housekeeping to honor the legacy of this material.
Absolutely we do. We need to explicitly state that this deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes only. We're here to learn, to explore, and to credit the incredible work of the publisher.
Which is New Awareness Network.
Right, New Awareness Network. And of course the authors Jane Roberts and Robert Butts.
It is so vital to support the source. We are synthesizing and analyzing here, but nothing replaces the original text. If you find yourself compelled by what we discussed today, and if you are listening to this show, I think you will be, we strongly encourage you to go to sethcenter.com for the early sessions.
Yes, sethcenter.com/ye early sessions.
Buy the books. Keep this material in print. It is a library that deserves to exist.
Okay, so formalities observed. Now let's talk about the mission for today. We have two very distinct vibes in this session. It's almost a split-screen effect.
It really is. It's a session of two halves.
On one side, we have Seth, this entity channeled by Jane Roberts, dropping a metaphysical bombshell that is honestly kind of chilling. He basically says the physical world is a direct chemical projection of our inner thoughts.
Like literal chemicals.
Right, not vibes, not energy in the woo-woo sense, but biological chemistry.
It's a biological explanation for what people usually think of as magic. He is grounding the mystical into the physiological.
And then on the other side, we have the fun part. We have a practical test, a literal clairvoyant experiment involving a sealed envelope, a newspaper clipping, and some very 1950s fashion choices.
It's the perfect combination. You get the theory of how reality's built, which is the heavy abstract part, and then you get a demonstration of perception that breaks the rules of that reality. It is the lecture and the lab work all in one night.
So let's unpack this. Segment 1, the mechanics of creation, or as I like to call it, wait, I made this.
I love that. Well, Seth opens this session with a statement that really sets the stage. He says, all action is generated behind and yet within all that you seem to see.
Generated behind and within, that is a prepositional nightmare. Well, what does he actually mean?
He's telling us that the objective world, the world of cars, trees, buildings, isn't the starting point. It's the end result. Usually we think of the world as a stage that was built before we got here. We walk onto the stage, we say our lines, we bump into the furniture. Seth is flipping that. He's saying the furniture only exists because we are projecting it from behind the scenes.
That is the flip, because we go through life thinking the world is this solid thing we have to navigate. If I walk into a wall, the wall was there first. Seth is saying, no, you were building the wall while you were walking into it.
Exactly. And he makes a point to say that you can manipulate the objective world from within, because that is the definition of manipulation. He says we do this in the dream state, and we do it in the waking state. The mechanism is the same. Only the consistency of the result is different.
Okay, but here is where it gets really interesting to me. Usually when people talk about manifesting or creating reality, it's very airy-fairy. It's all about intention and vision boards and feeling the feeling. Seth gets weirdly scientific about it.
He does. He gets into biology. He starts talking about enzymes in the pineal gland.
He talks about mental enzymes. That sounds like a sci-fi energy drink.
It does. But this is a concept he touched on years prior in the material, and here he really breaks it down. He explains that thoughts and images aren't just wispy, abstract things. A thought is energy, real, actual energy. And in physics, energy has to go somewhere. It doesn't just vanish.
So walk us through this assembly line. Let's make this practical. I have a thought. Let's say I'm thinking about an apple. A nice, crisp, red apple. What happens inside me?
Okay, according to Seth, in this session, that thought triggers a process involving the pineal gland.
The pineal gland, that's always the mystic's favorite gland. Descartes called it the seat of the soul.
It is, but Seth links it specifically to body chemicals. He says chemicals are the propellants of thought energy. These chemicals contain codified data.
Codified data, that is a computer science term in 1966. So the chemical isn't just a splash of fluid, it's like a microchip. It has instructions.
In a sense, yes. Or like DNA. The chemicals translate the thought into physical actuality. They act as the sparks that initiate the transformation. And here is the part that might give you goosebumps. Seth says these chemicals are released through the body, through the skin and pore systems.
Through my pores. Like sweat.
Similar to sweat, but invisible. They exit the body in what he calls an invisible but definite pseudo-physical formation.
Pseudo-physical, let's define that.
It means it is halfway there.
Yeah.
It's the intermediate stage. It isn't quite a solid object yet. You can't pick it up. But it's no longer just a thought inside your brain. It is this invisible structure radiating out from you, taking up space.
I have to pause on that image. It creates this picture of the human body just constantly venting this invisible gas of potential reality. Like we are walking smokestacks of creation.
That is a very vivid way to put it. And Seth is very absolute about this. I have the quote right here. He says, "There is no object about you that you have not created. There is nothing about your physical image that you have not made."
Nothing. Not the chair, not the table, not the bad haircut in the mirror.
All of it.
But this raises the obvious question, and I know the listener's thinking it because I'm thinking it. If I am constantly venting pseudo-physical stuff through my pores, why isn't my room filled with random junk? Why isn't there a bear in the corner just because I thought of a bear for a split second?
Seth addresses that directly. It comes down to intensity.
Okay, intensity. Unpack that.
He explains that not all thoughts or images are completely materialized. There is a struggle for expression. It's Darwinian in a way. Weak thoughts just don't have the chemical oomph, to use a non-technical term, to become solid. They don't have enough charge to harden into matter.
So it is survival of the fittest, but for thoughts.
Precisely. He talks about mass calculation. He says physical objects, the things we can touch, are high-intensity mass. But there are also things radiating from us that are low-intensity mass. They are there, chemically speaking, but they aren't dense enough for our senses to pick them up as objects.
That is fascinating. So the space around me isn't empty. It's full of the ghosts of my half-formed thoughts.
In a manner of speaking, yes. Seth says the environment contains highly codified information and instructions radiating from the skin. The air around you is thick with your own mental exhaust.
It reminds me of, okay, imagine a 3D printer.
Go on.
But instead of plastic filament, the printer uses your own body chemistry. And the printer is you. And you are printing the world around you in real time, but sometimes the printer jams or you cancel the print halfway through, so you just have these spaghetti strings of plastic lying around that aren't quite objects.
That is actually a very close analogy to what Seth describes. He implies that if our senses were tuned differently, we would see this pseudomass cluttering up the room. But we are tuned to only perceive the high-intensity results, the finished prints.
This leads us to the fingertip analogy, which I think is the most helpful part of this session for actually understanding how we do this without knowing we do it.
Yes. This is crucial for understanding why we don't feel like we are creating the chair we sit on. Seth says, the physical environment is as much part of you than basically you see as the physical image.
Whoa, as much a part of you.
He says you control the environment just as effectively as you create your fingertip. Think about it. You don't consciously know how to grow a fingernail. You don't know how to fire the specific neurons to move your pinky finger. You don't tell your cells to divide now. You just exist and your body does it.
Right. I don't have to sit there and concentrate like, okay, nerve A fire, muscle B contract, blood flow increase. I just decide to move and the machinery obeys.
Seth's argument is that we are doing the exact same thing with the external world. You are creating the table, maintaining its solidity and projecting its form. But the mechanism is hidden from your conscious ego, just like the mechanism of your heartbeat or your digestion is hidden.
That is the chilling part I mentioned earlier. It blurs the line between me and not me. If the table is just an extension of my chemical projection, then where do I end?
You don't. That's the implication. The physical objects are made of the same pseudomaterial that radiates from you. The only difference is the density. The boundary between subject you and object the world is an illusion created by your senses.
It is a lot to take in. It really forces you to look at your surroundings differently. If you are sitting in a messy room biologically, you are projecting a messy extension of yourself.
And if you are in a peaceful garden, you are projecting that order in life. It puts the responsibility squarely on the individual. There are no victims in this worldview, only creators.
It really does, and that can be a tough pill to swallow. But speaking of putting it to the test, let's pivot. Because Seth isn't just a philosophy professor giving a lecture. He is also a distinct personality communicating through Jane. And her husband, Robert Butts, liked to test him to see if this perception was real.
The envelope experiments.
I love these segments. It's like a psychic game show from the 60s.
It really is. This was the 77th experiment. So they had been doing this for a while. They were trying to build a body of statistical evidence.
Set the scene for us. It's November 1966. What actually happens in the room?
So Robert Butts has taken an object. He's placed it between two pieces of cardboard to obscure the shape, and then sealed it in a double envelope. He's taped it shut. Jane has no idea what it is. She goes into a trance. Seth comes through, and he holds the envelope to Jane's forehead to read it.
So he's bypassing the eyes. He's trying to read the codified data we talked about earlier directly.
Exactly. If objects emit this data, Seth claims to be able to pick it up.
And what was the object this time?
It was a newspaper clipping, specifically an article from the Saratogian, the local paper in Saratoga Springs, from September 1950.
So this is an old clipping, 16 years old at the time of the session.
Yes. Jane had saved it because she wrote it. It was about her being elected president of the day Students' Council at Skidmore College.
A young Jane Roberts student leader.
And visually, it featured a photo of 4 girls, Jane and her council members, wearing what the notes describe as the uniform in style then.
Which was blue jeans.
I love that. The note explicitly points out they are wearing blue jeans as if that is a specific uniform. It really dates the commentary. Robert even adds a humorous nod to the fashion of the time, noting that for college girls in 1950, jeans were the look.
So Seth is holding this envelope. What does he see? Does he just say, oh, it's a clipping of Jane in jeans?
No, it's never that linear. Perception, as Seth describes it, comes in flashes and impressions. He has to decode the data. It's like trying to remember a dream. You get fragments.
Let's play detective. What were the hits? What did he get right?
The first thing he says is 7.
7. Vague. Could be anything.
True, but it was accurate. In the text of the article, which you couldn't see, one of the council members lived at 78 Court Street. There's the 7.
Okay, I'll give him that. What else?
He says a note, which is a good description of a newspaper clipping. It's paper with text.
Yeah.
Then he gets more specific. He says 4 events closely related, or 4 people connected with one event.
Bingo. 4 girls in the photo connected by the election? That's a direct hit.
Exactly. That is statistically significant.
Yeah.
Then he starts getting into symbolic territory. He says connection with a mountain, or high peak, and a triangle.
Now, was there a mountain in the photo?
No. But this is where the expert analysis comes in, both from Robert Butts and looking at how clairvoyance often works. Jane and Robert interpreted this as the apex or high point of her college career. Being elected president was the peak.
Ah, so he's picking up on the emotional weight of the object, not just the ink on the paper.
Precisely. The triangle represents the hierarchy sitting at the top. This happens a lot in these experiments. Seth perceives the meaning of the object more strongly than the form of the object.
That makes sense if thoughts create reality. The thought behind the clipping was victory, high point, so that is what he reads. What about this circumvention or going around impression?
This is one of my favorites because it shows how Seth perceives the whole object, not just one side. He mentions a circumvention, something going around.
Okay.
2 interpretations here. One is that the photo shows the girls arranged in a semicircle.
Okay, literal geometry.
2 is that on the back of the clipping, the side you wouldn't see if you were just looking at the photo, there's part of another article. It was about the Feinberg Law.
The Feinberg Law?
It was a controversial law regarding subversive acts and treason during the Red Scare era. The article discusses the Constitution and whether the law circumvents rights.
Oh, wow. So he's reading the text on the back of the paper inside the sealed envelope.
It seems so. He even says connection with a barrister or lawyer, with civil or civil rights.
That is wild. The front of the clipping is about a student election. The back is about constitutional law. And he picks up on the legal jargon.
He even gets the tone of it. He mentions laws or edicts.
It really validates the idea that he's accessing information, not just guessing it's a picture of a person. He is getting data that isn't visually obvious, even if you held it up to the light. He's reading the codified data of the ink on the reverse side.
Right, but, and this is important for the credibility of the session, it isn't 100% perfect. There are what we might call glitches.
The misses, or the near misses. I love these because they show the system isn't perfect.
Seth keeps mentioning many small colored squares. He says it reminds him of Rupert's op painting.
Rupert being his name for Robert.
Yes. Robert had an op art painting hanging in the room where they were doing the session. It was made of small colored squares.
So Seth is getting distracted.
It seems that way. Or the image of the painting in the room was overlaying his perception of the envelope. He saw squares, and Jane's mind grabbed the nearest association. It's like when you're trying to listen to a song, but someone is talking loudly next to you, the signals get mixed.
That's kind of hilarious. I am seeing squares, like that thing on the wall over there.
It humanizes the process. It shows that translation of data is tricky.
And what about the bear? We have to talk about the bear.
The bear. Seth says, connection with a bear. I do not know to what this refers.
Even Seth is confused. I'm seeing a bear, folks. I don't know why.
Robert and Jane tried to make it fit. One of the girls in the photo is named Orlin Barron.
Barron. Baron.
It is a stretch.
That's a massive stretch. I love that they tried, though. Maybe he meant Baron.
It shows they were trying to validate everything, but sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, and maybe a bear is just noise. Or maybe there was a bear on a calendar in the room. Who knows?
Or maybe there was a bear in Saratoga Springs that day. We will never know.
True.
But then we get to the twist. And for me, this is the part that ties segment 1 and segment 2 together. This is where the physics of thought meets the reality of life.
Segment 3. The apparent misdeed.
This gave me chills when I read it. Seth is describing the girls in the photo. He says an apparent misdeed connected with one of them. Younger rather than older. B or C.
And he notes specifically it is an apparent misdeed.
Robert Butts reveals in the notes what this refers to, and it is about Jane herself.
Yes. The article celebrates her election in her junior year. A triumph. A high peak, as Seth called it. But Robert notes that Jane was later expelled from college.
Expelled. That is a heavy word for a student council president.
She was blamed for something of which she was innocent.
An apparent misdeed.
Exactly. Seth picked up on a future event, or a past event, depending on how you look at the timeline, connected to that specific moment of triumph. He saw the shadow hanging over the victory.
It's so ironic. Here is a clipping of her happiest moment, her high peak, and Seth looks at it and goes, yeah, but there's some drama here. A misdeed.
It's the detective work of the psyche. But think about how this connects back to the beginning.
The mechanics of creation.
If we create our reality, if we project our thoughts into chemical existence...
Did Jane create the misdeed?
That is the uncomfortable question. If she was innocent in the objective sense, meaning she didn't do the things she was accused of, did her inner self still construct the scenario? Did she project the misdeed just as she projected the high peak?
That is the double-edged sword of this philosophy. If you take credit for the table, you have to take credit for the stubbed toe. If you take credit for the presidency, you have to take credit for the expulsion.
Precisely. Seth says, there is no object about you that you have not created. That implies there is no event you have not participated in generating, even the ones that seem unfair.
It takes us from, oh, cool, I can manifest a parking spot, to, oh no, what deep-seated insecurity did I just manifest into a flat tire?
It demands a level of self-awareness that is almost superhuman, which is why Seth calls us to look behind and within. He wants us to clean up the factory floor so we stop printing defects.
It is heavy stuff, but it's also empowering, because if you built it...
You can change it.
Exactly. If the projection is coming from you, you can change the film in the projector.
Seth mentioned something else about the speed of this process. He says, a thought is indeed faster than a locomotive or a rocket.
I love that quote. It sounds like Superman.
It emphasizes that this interaction is instantaneous. The delay we see in the physical world is just the printing time, if you will. The energy movement is immediate. We have the power to change the projection instantly, even if the physical world takes a moment to catch up.
So to synthesize what we have talked about today, we have the theory that you are a biological reality projector pumping out pseudo-physical mass through your pores. And we have the practice, Seth proving that information exists beyond space and time by reading a sealed envelope about a girl in blue jeans who was about to get expelled.
It's a compelling package. It suggests that the world is much more fluid and much more intimate than we believe.
Intimate is the right word. You aren't just living in a house, you are the house. The walls are you. The chair is you. The events of your life are you.
In a very real chemical sense.
Before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone again, if this conversation sparked something in you, if you felt that little chemical spark of recognition, go to the source. Don't just take our word for it.
SethCenter.com/the early sessions.
These books are dense, they're challenging, but they are incredibly rewarding. It is like learning a new language, the language of your own existence.
And support the New Awareness Network. They are keeping this work alive for us to deep dive into. We need these archives. And remember, this deep dive is just a primer. It's the appetizer. The real work happens when you sit with the text yourself in the quiet of your own created room.
So I have one final question for you to mull over as you go about your day, and I want you to really think about this.
Let's hear it.
If your thoughts are chemically projecting your physical reality right now, if you are essentially 3D printing your tomorrow with the ink of your current mood, what are you building?
That is the question.
Are you building high peak, or are you building an apparent misdeed?
Watch your thoughts. They are faster than a rocket.
Indeed. Keep thinking good thoughts, everyone. Goodbye. See ya.